In your maiden speech, you also talked about working with and for unions. This is the other part of your portfolio as Workplace Relations Minister. Last week we saw you heckled by union members at the ACTU Congress. How would you describe your relationship now with the unions? Are you still working for and with the unions?
Well, I'm certainly working with unions. I'm working with employers, stakeholders too, and on going to ACTU Congress and getting heckled. Well, you know, that'll happen. What I think about the trade union scene and about workplace relations laws is it's our obligation as a national government to deliver what we were elected to deliver, and that's fair and decent laws in workplaces right around the country, and that's what our Fair Work Act is all about. And I am keen to remind people we've still got to get 2 companion pieces of legislation through to nail work choices in its coffin and make sure it doesn't get back out. So we are the deliverer of fair and decent laws. Trade unions rightly say that in order to represent working Australians, to try and further their interests, they need fair and decent laws. Well, they will have fair and decent laws. And the point I was making at ACTU Congress is now the future for Australian trade unionism lies in getting into workplaces and making sure that those laws live and breathe on the ground for Australians.
Not banging on your door asking for further reform.
Well, not banging on my door, asking for further reform, and particularly asking for reforms that the government has already rejected.
They're particularly incensed, the unions, though, at your decision to keep the Howard government's building industry watchdog and then replace it next year with a new body. The point the unions make is that why should workers in the building industry be treated differently to those who work in a coal mine, on the wharves, in manufacturing? Why aren't all workers equal under the law?
Well, before the last election we made a very clear commitment about this, and we said that we would keep the Australian Building and Construction Commission until the end of January in 2010, and then from the 1st of February we would have a new Fair Work specialist body doing compliance in the building industry. Now, the building industry is, I think, a tough industry. We're not the only nation on earth that has had workplace relations problems in building and construction.
There's still those problems?
Well, certainly Murray Wilcox, who undertook a major review of this area for us, a former judge, came to it with no predispositions. He was going to have a look at the facts, and when he looked at the facts he concluded that there was still cause to be concerned about compliance, particularly in Victoria and Western Australia.
So your view as Minister is the building industry is still plagued by thugs?
Well, my view as Minister is that Murray Wilcox has said to me, and I think he is right, that there are continuing compliance problems in Victoria and Western Australia. I don't want to take a broad brush here and paint every building worker with the same brush. That would be grossly unfair, because there are obviously building workers each and every day who get up and go to work, do a great day's work and come home. What do they worry about when they're on the building site? They probably worry about health and safety, and we want to make sure building sites are safe places. But there are compliance problems in Victoria and WA, and I've said to the unions, the Prime Minister has said to the unions in the area, we'll always have a tough cop on the beat, and we've got no tolerance for breaches of the law by anyone, including in the building industry.
Well, the key now is what that new tough cop on the beat will involve when you do have this new body taking over these powers from next year. Will the new body still have coercive powers, the power to call building workers before it, and if they refuse to do so, jail them?
Well, we are obviously working and considering the Wilcox report, and we will respond to that in due course.
Before the Labor conference, where the unions want an answer on this at the end of next month?
Well, the unions have been pressing us about this over a period of time now, and we've said we're going to undergo a process here, and that was what getting Murray Wilcox to do the report was about. Government is now considering the report. We are delivering our election commitment. Our election commitment is to deliver a change on the 1st of February 2010. So whatever other views people may have, whether they be trade unions or employer stakeholders, we're sticking to our election commitment and sticking to the time frame of the delivery, which gives us time to consider our response to the Wilcox report.
The important thing here is you've got this Labor conference, a set-piece event where the Prime Minister, yourself and other ministers will want to have the focus on the positives. Are you simply going to push off an announcement on what you're doing on this very, very contentious issue with the unions until after that set piece is out of the way?
Well, we'll make the government's announcement on a timetable of our own choosing. It won't be set in relation to ALP National Conference. Do I expect this to be an issue of debate at ALP National Conference? Yes, I do, and I expect there to be some passionate exchanges of views. But the Prime Minister's made it clear, and I've made it clear, we were elected. We have a mandate from the Australian people for our Fair Work changes. And when we were getting the Fair Work Act through the Parliament and meeting resistance from the Liberal Party, we said to them each and every day, we have a mandate to act. Well, we're going to say the same thing about this issue. We took a very clear policy to the election and we're about delivering that policy.
I also want to ask you about your other little-known policy portfolio area, social inclusion. This was a portfolio that you created on your initiative when you came to government. In light of the attacks that we've seen on Indian students recently, their protests, their claims that racism is behind this, can you say that Australia is any more socially inclusive now than it was before you came to government?
I think we can say that problems, certainly there have been some serious problems involving Indian students. I mean, I'm from Melbourne, I live in Melbourne's West, and some of the most grievous incidents have been in Melbourne's West, and to see anybody hurt and hurt seriously is obviously something we would all condemn, and our sympathies would go to the students involved and their families. But I'm also think it's important to make the point that, we welcome hundreds of thousands of international students to this country each year. This nation has a sizable Indian community, which is very welcome in our mix as part of our multicultural nation. So, we are a peaceful, harmonious, multicultural society. These incidents are obviously something that we want to address and address seriously because they are grossly unacceptable.
Do you think Australia has a problem with racism?
Well, the police in Victoria particularly, I'm most familiar with the Victorian scene, though New South Wales police and others have echoed this, saying that these attacks are not, in their belief, racially motivated, so much as there's been a series of problems in parts of Melbourne, particularly connected with parts of the public transport system late at night, and these students have become targets in this more generalised law and order problem. But whatever, is motivating the people involved to act, people are being hurt, people are scared, Indian students have become fearful about their safety, and we've got to address that. And I've been very pleased, as we've worked with our state colleagues, to see them step forward, their police forces step forward with increased policing and increased liaison with international students and the Indian community, so they can see the problem through their eyes and be responding quickly and sympathetically to it.
But putting aside the Indian students, as the Minister for Social Inclusion, is this an issue, racism, that you think Australia still has an issue with, still has a problem with, an undertone of racism?
Well, throughout the world, whether we're talking about Australia, we're talking about other developed nations, from time to time you will see problems arise associated with race. What we should do as national leaders when those problems do come up is send the message to the community, a message I passionately believe in, that the strength of this nation is its multiculturalism. The strength of who we are as Australians is our embrace of diversity. I think racist attitudes are very much in the minority in this nation. They are rightly condemned as unacceptable by the vast majority of Australians, but we've always got to make sure we keep talking about that and keep the emphasis on growing as a peaceful, diverse community. We take pride in the multiculturalism we've built. We rightly take pride in it. And to keep building it, we've ever got to be mindful about ensuring the message to the community is that embrace of diversity, not succumbing to any racist tendencies.